subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
That's just how we roll. You know what it is, what it is. How we roll. You know what it is, what it is. That's just how we roll.
Hey, 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 everyone. How's everybody today? Well, have you ever noticed that people seem to pay more attention when you're struggling than when you're thriving? You can post your pain, your disappointments, or the difficult things you're doing, and going through, and suddenly everybody's watching. But let you post that you're happy, traveling, growing, or simply enjoying life, and suddenly it's crickets, crickets, and very quiet. And it makes me wonder, are people more interested in our pain than our progress? Now, let me not say everyone who watches your struggles wants you to fail, but I am saying we need to be discerning about the people and spaces we allow into our lives. Because there's a difference between people who are interested in your life and people who are invested in your life. So today we're going to talk about protecting your peace, paying attention to who celebrates your victories, and surrounding yourself with people who don't just watch you survive, but genuinely want to see you thrive. Welcome to At Home with Goldnbronze, and I am Goldnbronze. The topic today is, are people more interested in your pain than your progress? So let's get into it. Have you ever noticed something about social media? Have you ever noticed that when you post something positive, when you're happy, when you're traveling, when you're celebrating, when you're growing, when you are enjoying life, you may not get nearly as much attention as you would if you talk about something painful. But let you post that you're struggling, baby. Let you talk about disappointment. Let you share that you're going through something. Let you talk about your betrayal, heartbreak, financial difficulties, loneliness, or something that didn't work out. And suddenly, people are watching. Suddenly, people are interested. Suddenly, people have questions. And it makes me wonder, are people more interested in our pain than they are in our progress? Now, I want to be very careful with this conversation because I don't want to suggest that every person who watches somebody negative wants you to fail. That's not fair, and that's not necessarily true. Sometimes negative stories are simply more relatable. Sometimes people see themselves in our struggles. Sometimes people are looking for encouragement because they're going through something similar. Sometimes people genuinely care. But I do believe there is something we need to learn about discernment. And I talk about this often. Discernment is something that I prayed about because I was always getting it wrong. Because everybody who has access to your life does not necessarily have access to your heart. And everybody who watches does not necessarily celebrate you. That's a hard truth. And I think sometimes we need to stop looking at views, likes, comments, and engagement as proof that people really care about us. Because attention and love are not the same thing. Visibility and connection are not the same. And an audience is not the same thing as a community. I can post something about a difficult experience I'm having, and suddenly everybody wants to know what's going on. Where are you? What happened? Are you okay? Please tell us what happened. Tell us more. Tell us more. Tell us more. Who did this to you? But then I can post something about a blessing. I can post that I'm happy. I can post that I'm traveling. I can post that I'm building something new. I can post that I'm excited about my future. And suddenly, crickets, crickets, total silence. And I have to ask myself, why is my pain more interesting to some people than my progress? Now, that's a question worth thinking about. Because sometimes we are surrounded by people who are comfortable with the version of us that needs help. But they become uncomfortable with the version of us that no longer needs help. Some people are comfortable when you're struggling because it makes them feel better about their own situation. Some people are comfortable when you're confused because they don't have to confront your clarity. Some people are comfortable when you're broken because they don't have to deal with your strength. And some people are comfortable when you're standing still because your movement reminds them that they haven't moved at all. That's why we have to be discerning, people. We have to pay attention to the energy and the vibrations around us. We have to tap into that. We have to pay attention to how people respond to us. Not just when we're hurting, but when we're happy. Mostly pay attention to how people respond to you when you're happy. Not just when you're crying, but when you're celebrating. Not just when you're asking for help, but when you're succeeding. Pay attention to who's clapping for you and who's not. Because the people who genuinely love you should be able to celebrate your good days too. I don't need you to only check on me when I'm falling apart. I need people in my life who can celebrate when I'm putting myself back together, who can see the improvement, who knows me from then, and who can see me who I am becoming now. I need people who can celebrate when I'm healing and not just hurting. I need people who can celebrate when I'm growing. I need people who can celebrate when I'm stepping into a new chapter. And I think that's where we have to become very careful about the spaces we put ourselves in. Because where you spend your time matters. Who you spend your time with matters. What you allow into your spirit matters. And I don't just mean that in a religious sense. I am spiritual. I am not just religious. Actually, I'm more spiritual. I'm talking about your emotional environment, your mental environment, your spiritual environment, your physical environment, the conversations you constantly participate in, the people you constantly listen to, the things that you constantly watch, and how it all makes you feel, the energy you constantly absorb. All of those things can influence you. And sometimes we don't realize how much we've been absorbing until we finally step away from it. That's why I believe that we have to become more intentional about putting ourselves in the spaces where we feel safe. Safe enough to be honest. Safe enough to be vulnerable. Safe enough to feel like we can make mistakes. Safe enough to celebrate. Safe enough to dream. Safe enough to succeed. Because here's something I've learned. You don't just need people who will sit with you in your darkness. You also need people who won't be threatened by your light. That's very important because there are people who will sit with you while you're hurting. They'll listen to every little detail. They'll ask you what happened. They'll tell you how terrible that situation is. But when you begin to heal, they disappear. And oftentimes, they'll take that intel that you gave them, they'll take away from it, they'll add to it, they'll twist it, they'll embellish it, and they'll share it. When you start feeling better, they're not as interested at all anymore. When you start moving forward, they don't have that much to say anymore. When you start succeeding, they become quiet even more. And that doesn't automatically mean they're bad people, but it may mean that you need to pay close attention to them. Discernment, it is not paranoia. Discernment is paying attention, people. It's noticing patterns. It's listening to what people say and watching what they do. It's watching what they don't do and what they don't say as well. It's asking yourself, how do I feel after spending time with this person? Do I feel encouraged by them? Or do I feel drained? Do I feel safe? Or do I feel like I can be by myself? Do I feel like I have to constantly explain myself? Do I feel like this person wants the best for me? And here's another question. Can this person celebrate me without making many without making my success about themselves. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes when you say to someone something good about yourself, something that you've genuinely worked on by yourself, and then they take the credit for, well, you wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't have done this. Totally about themselves. Or I told you that is why you did this. Pay attention to that. That's a big one. Because sometimes you find out who people really are when you start doing well. You find out who people are when you stop needing them. You find out who people are when you establish boundaries. Sometimes people get angry when you establish boundaries, especially if you never did that before. They say something's wrong with you. You've changed when you've just decided to set the boundaries, something that you should have done a long time ago because they absolutely drain your energy. You find out who people are when you say no. They get angry. How dare you say no to me? And you find out who people are when you start becoming the person you were always meant to be. That's why I believe we have to be careful about who we give our personal information to. I'm saying I don't care if it's cousin, auntie, mother, father, brother, niece, nephew, daughter, granddaughter. We have to be careful who we give our personal information to, because those people too, not just friends, can also be the person to hurt you. You don't have to tell everybody everything. You don't have to announce your every move. You don't have to explain every decision, or any for that matter. You don't have to make your entire life available for public consumption. Looky here. I bought a new car. Looky here. My girlfriend gave me this. My boyfriend bought me that. Look at my ring. Look at my diamond necklace. You do not have to make your entire life available for consumption to the public. Some things need to be protected. Some dreams need to be protected. Some relationships need to be protected. Some blessings need to be protected. And sometimes silence is not secrecy. Privacy is not secrecy. I had someone say to me one time, because I'm a private person, I've been betrayed by people very close to me. And everything that I say is not always as I say it when it gets back to me. I have had some very intimate things repeated, changed, switched up, betrayal. And so I became very private. And someone said to me, I don't know what all the secrecy is about, because they wanted to get in my business. And they wanted to get in my business so they could do just what I said they did. Add to it, take away, subtract, add, change, twist, whatever. And I realized who the bone carrier was. So I quit talking to that person about anything personal. The weather, politics, yeah. My personal life was off limits. And they said to me, I don't know what all the secrecy is about. And I said, it's not secrecy. is privacy. There's a difference. Sometimes silence is wisdom. Sometimes privacy, and in most cases, is protection. Sometimes you have to let people see the fruit without giving them access to the roots. Because everybody doesn't need to know what it took for you to get where you are. And everybody doesn't need to know what you're working on before it has a chance to grow. People will they'll steal your ideal, present it to you, and act like it was theirs. They had it first. I think social media has created this idea that we have to share everything, but we don't. We feel like we have to document everything, but we don't, not publicly. We feel like people need to know when we're struggling, but they don't need to know. They need to know when we're happy. They need to know where we're going. They need to know who we're with, what we're doing positively. They need to know all of the positive, enlightening, inspirational, and motivational things. They need to be inspired. But I've learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply just live your life unapologetically without purposely causing hurt to anyone else. You don't have to prove that you're happy. People can see that. You don't have to prove that you're successful. People can see that. You don't have to prove that you're healing. People can see that. You don't have to have proof that you've moved on. You don't have to prove anything at all. Just live your life. And here's something else I want us to think about. Sometimes we say nobody supports us because that's what it looks like. But maybe we're looking for support in the wrong places. Maybe we're looking for validation from an audience when what we really need is a community. Maybe we need to stop counting the likes and start counting the people who actually show up. Because I would rather have 5 people who genuinely celebrate me and who I can celebrate as well than 5,000 people who are only watching to see whether I fall and then laugh. You ever put up a reel for promo or advertisement or whatever and see the laughing emoji? That's not a friend or a supporter. I'd rather have a small circle of people who pray for me, encourage me, tell me the truth, and celebrate my growth. And I do the same for them, rather than a large audience that is only entertained by my struggles. And this is where I want to bring this back to discernment. Pay attention to the spirit of the spaces that you're in. Pay attention to how you feel when you leave certain conversations. Pay attention to what happens when you share good news. Pay attention to who celebrates your wins. Pay attention to who only shows up when you're hurting, when you're in pain. when that's the only time they have anything to say. Pay attention to who asks questions because they genuinely care, or are they being nosy? And who asks questions because they're simply curious. There's a difference. And sometimes you won't know the difference immediately. That's why discernment takes time. I prayed for discernment for years. And one day, a preacher friend of mine said to me, Karen, you already have it. Golden, you already have it. You watch. You listen. You observe. You don't have to accuse anybody. You don't have to confront everybody. You don't have to make an announcement. Sometimes you just quietly adjust your access. Because access to you is a privilege. It is not an entitlement. And I think we need to understand that. Not everybody deserves the same level of access to your life. There are people who can be acquaintances, and put a period behind that. There are people who can be friends. There are people who can be family. And there are people who can be trusted with the deepest parts of you. And if you noticed, that's not always those that are your friends. And that's not always those that are your family. They can be by themselves. The people who you can trust with the deepest parts of you can be not in any of those other categories. Those are not all the same thing. They're all different categories. And it's okay for them not to be the same. One of the greatest lessons I've learned as I've gotten older is that peace is priceless. I don't want to be surrounded by people who make me question whether or not I'm safe being around them. I don't want to be constantly wondering who's genuine. I don't want to be in someone's home who really doesn't want me to be in their home. I don't want to feel like I have to protect myself from the very people who are supposed to love me. So they say. Their actions speaks otherwise. I want to be in spaces where I can breathe, where I can laugh, where I can grow, where I can make mistakes, where I can celebrate when I win, where I can be human and not judged. And I want that for you too. I want you to find your safe spaces. I want you to find your people. I want you to find your environments where you don't have to shrink yourself to make someone else feel comfortable. I want you to understand something. You are allowed to leave spaces that no longer feel healthy for you. Understand me. I don't care who it is. Nowadays, we cannot even tell if we're safe with family. And if you don't feel safe in that space, you are allowed to leave if it no longer feels healthy for you. You are allowed to outgrow relationships. You are allowed to change your circle. You are allowed to stop explaining yourself. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to celebrate your life without feeling guilty about it. You are allowed to be discerning. You don't have to assume everybody is against you, but you also don't have to assume everybody is for you either. There is a difference. So let the next time you post something positive and nobody seems to pay attention, don't let that discourage you. Your blessing does not become less valuable because it didn't get a lot of likes. Your joy does not become less real because nobody commented. Your progress does not become less important because the algorithm didn't promote it. And your life is not measured by views. Sometimes the most important growth in your life will happen when nobody is watching. Sometimes the greatest victories will happen in private. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters won't be documented online. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, I would rather be genuinely happy in real life than appear popular online on social media. I would rather have peace than attention. I would rather have genuine relationships than a large following. I would rather have people who celebrate my life than people who are entertained by my struggles and unhappiness. So here's my encouragement to you today. Pay attention. Pay attention to the people around you. Pay attention to the spaces you occupy. Pay attention to what you're allowing into your mind and spirit. Pay attention to who celebrates you. Pay attention to who supports you. Pay attention to who respects your boundaries. And most importantly, pay attention to how you feel when you're around certain people. Because sometimes your spirit will recognize something before your mind can even explain it to you. And if you are a person of faith, pray about it. Ask God for discernment. Ask God to show you who is genuinely for you. And when people leave, let them go. Ask God to give you wisdom about the relationships you're building and the environments you're entertaining and entering. Because everybody does not access positive things about you, and everybody does not need access to your future. Everybody doesn't need access to your dreams. Everybody doesn't need access to your vulnerability. And everybody doesn't need a front row seat to your life. Protect your peace. Protect your joy. Protect your dreams. And surround yourself with people who don't just show up when you're having a bad day. Surround yourself with people who can look at you on your best day and say, I am so happy for you. Not, why you? Not, how did you get that or do that? Not, it must be nice. But I am genuinely happy for you. Those are the people. And when you find those people, cherish them and keep them close to you and reciprocate. Because life is too short to spend it wondering who is secretly hoping you fail. Find the people who genuinely want you to flourish. Find the people who will sit with you in your darkest but won't be threatened by your light. Find the people who will tell you the truth when you need correction and clap for you when you deserve celebration. Find the people who will tell you in a loving way the truth to not hurt you when you need correction, and clap loudly for you when you deserve celebration. Find the people who are just as excited for your success as you are. Find the people who can hold space for the whole you, the struggling you, the healing you, the growing you, the successful you, the happy you, the evolving you, because you deserve relationships that can handle all of you. And that's my thought for today. Maybe the lesson isn't that people don't care about your good days. Maybe the lesson is that we need to become more intentional about who we expect to care at all. Because everybody is not your person. I am going to say that again. I'm saying this to myself too. Everybody is not your person. Everybody is not your community. Everybody is not your safe space. And that's okay. Your job is not to convince everybody to love you. Your job is to discern who is worthy of your trust, your time, your energy, and your presence. And when you find those people, love them, appreciate them, celebrate them too. And maybe that person is someone that needs you to do that for them as well. And be that person for someone else. Because we live in a world where it's easy to be entertained by someone's pain. And that is so sad. Let's be different. You know, I have this saying, I want to be different. I am differently me. And I say that in a positive manner. Let's be the people who celebrate each other. Let's be the people who celebrate healing. Let's celebrate growth. Let's celebrate joy. Let's celebrate success. Let's celebrate the comeback. Let's celebrate the person who finally found their peace. Let's celebrate the person who finally got out of the toxic situation. Let's celebrate the person who finally started believing in themselves. Let's celebrate the person who finally decided that they were worth more, because that's the kind of energy I want to be around. And that's the kind of energy I want to give to the world. So if you're listening to this and you're in a season where you're doing well, keep going. Every time I want to give up, a little voice says to me, keep going. Keep going. That is the Holy Spirit telling me, keep going. Don't give up. Don't let the silence discourage you. Don't let the lack of engagement discourage you. Don't let the lack of likes or shares discourage you. And if you're in a season where you're struggling, I want you to know that you don't have to perform your pain to be worthy of love and attention. The world doesn't have to see that. You don't have to be, bleeding publicly for people to care about you. You don't have to tell your whole story to prove that your pain is real. Find safe people to be around. It's not always your friends, people that we think are our friends. Those are acquaintances. It's not always our family, and that's unfortunate. Find those safe people. Find safe places. Find your community. And most importantly, find your peace. Because your life is too precious to spend it surrounded by people who are only interested in watching you survive. They should want to watch you live a purposeful life, happy, peaceful, and in contentment. You deserve people who want to watch you thrive. And that's the difference. Don't just look for people who are interested in your story. Look for people who are invested in your well-being. That's where the real connection is. That's where the real community is. And that's where the real blessings are. I want to let you know that I am a life coach specializing in trauma recovery. And a lot of what I talk to you about on air or video, podcasting, are things that I've experienced. I first went through therapy. I started a nonprofit that advocates against domestic violence and advocates for women's health issues, including general mental, maternity, self-care, and mindfulness. Those are our main core initiatives, and I've added a few more, like travel and stuff like that. But if you feel like not only have I lived it, I healed from it through therapy, and then I went and became a life coach to mentor and coach others. And you can reach out to me on www.goldenswancadre.com. That's GOLDENSWANCADRE.com. If you need life coaching, send me a message. We can do a free 15-minute consultation and go from there. I'm Goldnbronze, and this is At Home with Goldnbronze. Until next time, protect your peace, use your discernment, stay encouraged, and remember, everybody who watches you isn't watching for the same reason. But you don't have to figure out everybody's reason. You just have to be wise about who you allow close enough to influence your life. And whatever you do, I always say, keep growing, keep glowing, and keep moving forward. And as we wrap up today's conversation, I want you to remember this. Don't let the number of views, likes, or comments determine the value of your life. Your joy is still joy, even when nobody clicks like. Your progress is still progress, even when nobody applauds. Your blessings are still blessings, even when nobody sees them. So be intentional about the people you allow into your space. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your wins, encourage your growth, and genuinely want to see you thrive. And if you don't have that circle yet, don't be discouraged. Sometimes God has to remove the wrong people so he can make room for the right ones. Keep growing, keep glowing, and keep protecting your peace. And most importantly, keep living your life authentically, because your best days don't need an audience to be beautiful. I'm Goldnbronze, and this is At Home with Goldnbronze, and I'll see you around the corner. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Hasta luego.